Let me introduce you to today's first speaker. She is actually an actress and trainer, so she will feel really great about the stage. And she teaches entrepreneurs, teachers, how to pitch and tell their stories. Amy Tez, the stage is yours.
Hi, you can hear me, great, hello. So a question I often ask myself is, what on earth can an actor like myself teach business? On the surface, our values may seem diametrically opposed. Business, to my mind, seems to be more about results, the bottom line, productivity, getting things right, we mustn't make a mistake. There's a lot of pressure. I go into a lot of business scenarios and I run workshops and I can literally feel the pressure in the room because people are worried about getting things wrong. So I often feel that there's very little genuine creativity. Actors, on the other hand, are all about being creative. We definitely walk head first into making a mistake because we know that mistakes are part of learning and it's the only way to be genuinely creative. So acting actually is a set of tools, a training to help a person, anyone really, to gradually dismantle the vice of self-consciousness, this fear of what other people think of you, so that you can finally step into your true power and be the sort of person that can own any stage under any pressure. So I travel the world teaching business people how to pitch their businesses, present their stories, negotiate, and tell their business stories, but tell it with heart. So it's about being authentic, not speaking in a scripted way, which I feel most business people do. So I'm here to break through that facade. Now, I wasn't always this assertive. I used to be incredibly shy. So when I was 15 and when I was at school, I found it very difficult to put my ideas out there. I found it very difficult to even raise my hand in class and say what I think without going bright red, without stuttering, without almost wanting to cry. Like, it was terrifying for me. I actually come from a background where I was pretty bullied for a long time, and I really didn't believe in myself. And I was determined to overcome this fear in my life. So at the age of 15, I remember at school, and I went to this girls' school, and we were doing an all-female production of a Shakespeare play called A Midsummer Night's Dream. And I thought, well, you know what, I'll audition for it. I'm going to attempt to overcome my fear, and the only way to do it is to go on a stage. And my audition was terrible. So I stood pretty much, not in front of this many people, but in front of a lot of people, the school, everyone I knew at school, which was really scary because it's peer pressure. And I stood in front of them, and for the first time, I attempted to put my voice out there. And it was a pretty crappy audition. I was so scared that I gradually started, as I was speaking, to crouch down in front of everybody like this. And my script that was in my hand was going in front of my face. So actually, by the end of the audition, I was on the ground, hiding behind my script. It was the worst audition anyone could ever do. And thankfully, the teachers took pity on me and gave me a role anyway. And I was the role of the little fairy in A Midsummer Night's Dream that had no lines. I had no lines. So you might think, well, you know, that's not much of an achievement. But actually, for someone like myself, who is incredibly shy and struggled to put myself out there, that was a huge deal for me. It was my first step towards being assertive, towards putting my ideas out there, putting myself out there in a risky way. And I was hooked, and I was determined to get better and better at it. So now, And actually, let me define assertiveness for you from my perspective. So assertiveness is putting your ideas out there, your thoughts and your feelings out there, and this is the important part, without worrying what other people think of you. In this PC world, that might be considered contentious, but the less we worry about what people think of us, the more we can be ourselves. And this includes the thoughts and feelings that may be considered to be disruptive, different, going against the grain, slightly contentious, and potentially offensive. I read this quote this morning, and I think it's really important. One of my values is creativity, and I will always prioritize creativity over fitting in. And the quote was, "Consensus in creativity leads to mediocrity." So I truly believe that to be genuinely creative and disruptive, and this applies to business people just as much as actors, you've got to dare to put your voice out there, regardless of what other people think of you. Okay, so, is that clicky noise annoying? Is it annoying anyone? I can hear a click. Is it? Is it my earring? Okay, right, thanks. Shit. All right, I'll try not to move my earrings. I don't know why I put them on this morning. Is it okay? All right. All right. You know, I might just take it off and have... Can you hear me now? That's much better. Great. All right. So, are we familiar with this feeling? By show of hands, who knows what that feels like? Great, I'm not the only one. All right. So, actually, by show of hands, I want to know who here has ever been in a high-stakes scenario, a business meeting, let's say, where the stakes are high, and felt really, really nervous, but pretended not to be. Yes. Welcome to the imposter syndrome. So it's this idea that who we are on the inside isn't acceptable in some ways. We're not good enough. We somehow feel like we're a fraud. We don't know what we're talking about. They're going to find out that we don't really belong. So we've got to pretend to be something that we're not. And we erect these facades. And it's the facade that works against your assertiveness, the ability to be truthful and creative and genuinely, healthily disruptive. How does that look like in a meeting? So I go into a lot of meetings and I'm often fixing communication issues. People can often either play passive, so it's the type, and I certainly used to be one of these people, it's the type that plays very small, is very afraid to put their ideas out there, can physically shrink, can often dismiss their own ideas as they're saying them. It's that sense of people speaking, yet the energy at the end of the sentence can kind of like taper away. And it happens a lot. And people often struggle to get to the point. So that's the passive side of things. Then you've got the aggressive types, the types that think that they take up a lot of space. They're not afraid to put their ideas out there, but it's often at the expense of other people's integrity and respect. So it's the type that tries to prove themselves. They're not confident on the inside, so they've got to push out this facade. And that leads to meetings that can kind of meander, not particularly go anywhere. Do you guys are familiar with those types of meetings where there's a lot of words, but nothing's really being said? I've been in a lot of those meetings. And the problem is not the person you are on the inside, that small, slightly fragile, sensitive person that we all are. It's the facade. The facade gets in the way of connection. The facade gets in the way of your ability to truly put your ideas out there and truly talk to people and truly connect. And it also doesn't help that everyone's on their phone, because that definitely gets in the way of connection. So a facade is draining, because there's a lot of energy being put into this idea of who we're supposed to be rather than who we actually are. A facade lacks conviction, and actually, people's body language will always give them away. So a person might be smiling, for example, but the leg could be shaking, or the eyes might be looking very fearful, but there's still this smile, or the voice might be quite feeble, even though the words are very strong and very confident. And what happens with that type of communication is that the listener tends to pay attention to the body language and less to the words. So even if the words sound powerful, the body language, if it's weak and incongruent with your message, people will dismiss the words in favor of the body language. Okay. So to be assertive, to put your voice out there, you have to take a risk. But taking a risk means potentially you could fall flat on your face. And that is death to the facade. So if we're very invested in our facades, we're never going to be able to give ourselves the opportunity to take a risk. And I will share some techniques on how to do this in a moment. But I was very much the person that struggled with being assertive when I was a lot younger. So at the age of 22, 23, I was determined to overcome my particular facade, which was quite passive, quite apologetic. And I decided to go to drama school, because you can't be precious about yourself at drama school. You have to put yourself on a stage every day and be willing to be made a fool of. You cannot be invested in your ego for too long. And so I thought the best way to do it was to go to drama school. And luckily I got in. And I learned over the course of 3 years to slowly let go of my self-consciousness and to learn to become more physically, because we have to get into our body, and to become more emotionally alive to the present moment, the danger of the present moment. And in order to become more myself, so that I could be more truthful in my communication, because that's something that's very important to me. And drama school was my first step towards that. Now, I learned so much at drama school and so much since, and I'm going to try to distill that training and that knowledge into the next 20 minutes and share with you a couple of practical techniques to help you, if it's something that you're interested in, to become more authentic, more creative, and more assertive, and less wedded to the facade that it's bred from the imposter syndrome. Okay. So the first thing that I learned at drama school was to breathe. So the problem with a lot of us, most of us, is we don't breathe. We do breathe, obviously, because if we didn't, we'd be dead. But we don't breathe in a connected way. We're all so anxious and worried. We're in our heads. We're thinking a lot. We're very afraid to make a mistake. We're very afraid to upset other people. We're very afraid to disappoint others and ourselves, and we're afraid to fail. So what happens? The breath goes into the chest physically, and we remove ourselves from our bodies because we're not breathing in a deep, connected way. We're in fight-flight. The adrenal response is firing, the brain is working overtime, and there's no way that in that state we can create, we can be genuinely creative. It's impossible. The threat systems are firing. So the first thing I learned at drama school, which was incredibly important to someone like myself who has a very active mind, was to breathe and to calm down. Now, as an actor, if you're not calm, there's no way you can step onto a stage, particularly when everyone's paid a lot of money to be there. Remember your script, remember the other guy's script, and be prepared for mistakes, which will always happen. Be prepared to handle the mistake and roll with the punches and be able to handle it if we're not calm. So we learn to breathe. In business, when you're calm, and by the way, when I say calm, I don't mean completely get rid of anxiety, because I think that might be impossible. I certainly haven't achieved it. I'm quite nervous standing here. I'm not calm, fully. I'm nervous because, of course, I don't know any of you, and you don't know me, so why would I be relaxed? And also, it's kind of weird standing on a stage and have 500 people staring at me only. Of course, it's going to make me a little bit anxious. But I've learned to breathe through the anxiety so that I can handle the stage. In business, when we're calm and when we breathe in a connected way, when we breathe deep into the belly, we're much more able to sound persuasive, to have impact, to be positive, and miraculously, for those people who think that they don't have structure when they speak, when they communicate, when you're calm, when you're able to breathe, the structure appears because you can collect your thoughts. You can finally get on top of your thoughts. You can finally think. You know that feeling when you're speaking and the words are just coming out your mouth, but you have no idea what you're saying? Anyone know that feeling? Do I get a few nods? Yeah. Rambling. I used to ramble a lot. I might be rambling a little bit now. Rambling, anyone else experience that? Yeah. So breath. Breath is your friend. The calmest person in the room is always the most authoritative person in the room. So it's really important that we start to breathe in a deeper way. And I'm going to lead you through an exercise in a minute. The other reason why we need to be calm in business, particularly because you need to sell, right, is it helps you to actually listen to other people. Most people in business, and in acting actually, we're in the threat state, the threat response is triggered, and we really struggle to genuinely listen to other people because our brains are going a million miles an hour, and we're thinking of the next few words to say, rather than actually focusing on the person in front of us and seeing what they're about, listening. So in a meeting, in your next meeting, instead of speaking, see if you can focus, breathe, and focus on the person in front of you and actually listen to what they're saying and also to what they're not saying. So listening is about paying attention to another person and seeing where they're coming from and being able to feel what it feels like to really put your attention on somebody else. And actually you're doing another person a favor because all of us, all we ever really want is to be heard. It's a human drive, a human need to be listened to. But we can't listen to other people unless we're in the moment, we're breathing, and we're not in our heads. We're not thinking of the next thing to say. And then the other person is more likely to want to work with you, want to, communicate with you, want to have a business with you. So listening is key. So we're going to do a very quick breath exercise to get us all slightly more in the moment together. So I'd like you all, I know you're all pretty relaxed and lean back in your chairs. I'd like you all to sit up for a moment. So just sit up in your chairs. You don't need to stand. Just sit up in your chairs. And I'd like you to imagine just for a moment that there is an imaginary, because it's not real, but an imaginary piece of string lifting you up. So you're growing in stature. And the spine is growing, so there's a little bit of length in the body. And I want you to put one hand on your chest and give it a little rub, because that's nice. And then put the other hand on your belly. Right. So, I want you to actually do this for me. So, how we breathe in the workplace, because there's a lot of tension in the workplace, and I do notice that a lot of people don't breathe very well. We snatch our breath. So we do, I'm going to turn to the side and show you. It's a sense of, like this. We're catching the breath in the chest and we're mildly hyperventilating. And there's no way that we can be creative, authentic, or ourselves when we're in hyperventilation mode. So just to see what it feels like, we're going to consciously snatch 2 breaths into the chest just to see what that feels like. Let's do that all together. Just 2. Have you done it? You did do it, right? I can't actually see. Great, I'm going to imagine that you did. I think I heard it. All right, does that feel nice? Feel nice? No? Yeah. Because it's not deep connected breath. So you're going to leave the hand there to remind yourself not to breathe into the chest. The hand is on the belly to remind yourself to breathe deep into the belly. I want you to imagine that there's a balloon in the belly, right? And we're going to breathe deep into this balloon and we're going to expand it in every direction. So we're not going to hang on to our 6-packs. We're not going to hang on to our taut bellies. We're going to just let it hang. So we're going to breathe, and I'll set it up for you. We're going to breathe in for a count of 3, and I'll guide you. And then we're going to breathe out to a count of 5. And we're going to breathe in deep to the belly and breathe out for a count of 5. The out breath is always longer than the in breath because a lot of us hold on to our breath. That's often the problem. So we want to really focus on breathing out. So we ready? Good. You guys do speak. This is nice. Right. Breathe in 2, 3, deep into the belly, and breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5. Close your eyes if it helps. Breathe in, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't lose that posture. In, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll do one more. In, 2, 3, deep into the belly, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. So even just for a small moment, just to do a little breathing exercise and to not think for a moment, to not look at our phones, to not worry about something, just to focus on our breath, just for a couple of moments, can break the cycle of overthinking that takes you away from the present moment. Because communication, authenticity, assertiveness, the ability to tell your stories with heart is all at your fingertips in the present moment. It's where you truly feel. And you can't feel anything unless you're breathing. So breath is really, really important. And it's the cornerstone of powerful storytelling. No one can tell a story unless they're truly breathing deeply and deep into the belly. It's the diaphragmatic breath. The diaphragm is a muscle that goes underneath the lungs, and it helps to support the breath. And it's the first thing we work on at drama school in acting, because there is no way an actor could go on a stage and actually present a story unless they're connected to their breath, connected to their voice, and projecting, and calm. There's a lot of things to remember, but it starts with breath. So it's really, really important. I see a lot of business people that I work with rush, afraid to pause, rambling, very difficult to mean what they say, and they think that they lack all these skills, but these skills are only a breath away. Because if we could just stop for a moment and take a deep breath and give ourselves the permission to breathe, actually, then suddenly we can start to tell our stories in a wholehearted way, and we don't even need our scripts. Because stories, truth, never needs a script. Everybody's very wedded to their scripts. When they pitch, they've got their scripts. I've got a script here, but it's bullet points to make sure I don't go off track. So bullet points are okay, but you do not want to be speaking in a scripted way. And the breath will always help you move away from that robotic style of speaking that I hear so often in business scenarios. It's about speaking with truth. Okay, and by the way, I just want to mention at this point that nerves, people come to me a lot and say, I want to get rid of my nerves. I want to be able to pitch and present without being nervous. No, I will not help you to do that, because nerves are great. Nerves means you're alive. It's not about getting rid of nerves, it's about managing them so that they don't get the better of you. It's about breathing and using your nerves to direct you into powerful speaking, rather than letting your nerves get the better of you. And nerves are great because they mean you're about to take a risk. It means that what you're about to say has consequence and matters to you. Good. So I'm not in the business of getting rid of people's nerves. And I'm very suspicious of anyone that says to me, I never get nervous. Because that would mean that you're not taking a risk and you're not growing. So make nerves your friend. Okay. The next thing that we learned at drama school and since was getting in the body. So a lot of us are very divorced from our bodies, particularly in business and in academia. I see a lot of people who are in their heads, just walking around, heads communicating, but the bodies are kind of left out of the equation. So it's really important that you learn to express and connect with the body. It might sound a bit hippy-dippy, but maybe when I get to the end of this section, you'll see what I mean. Now, a lot of people teach my job, and they work with, let's say, politicians, and they give them very prescriptive and contrived body language gestures to stick to when they're communicating to the public. And to my mind, it makes a person look fake. To always have to, let's say, put your hands like this at a certain point. Or I read somewhere that you've got to speak like your hands are making the shape of a box. It's very strange, because it's not human, and it's weird, and we see through it. So hopefully you can tell with me today that I'm not controlling my body language. I'm very committed to my message, so my body language is actually falling, hopefully, more into place. I'm relaxing. So the best body language tip I can give you is to relax as much as you can into your body, and that comes with breath. So let me tell you what bad body language looks like. You go into a meeting and you see those people who are shrinking, physically shrinking. Perhaps if they're standing up, their feet might be together. The shoulders, this is an exaggeration, by the way. The shoulders might be hunched, the spine is slightly collapsed. I had one client the other day, the chin was always forward, cuts off the energy at the throat. The knees might be locked, so we can't move. It's a sense of restriction, and it makes a person look very low status. And then on the flip side, you get the types who are physically taking up a lot of space. So they're quite happy, to walk in the room. It's all about me. And take a lot of space without much concern for the space of other people. And that's definitely not good either. The best body, and by the way, oh God, fuck. Never mind, that always happens to me. By the way, mistakes are great, right? I did say that. Mistakes are great. I'll get there in a minute. So the types that thrust their chest forward, and there's a sense of bracing across the chest. It's almost like a person is very held. They're trying to prove a point. That's not good either. What you want is relaxed body language. So it's even if you do this for a moment in your chairs, roll the shoulders back and down, relax the chest, open, brave, forthright. Hello, I'm here. I don't need to prove anything. I don't need to apologize or hide anything. It's just me. So it's confident, poised, and open. One of the mistakes a lot of people in tech make, and I work with a lot of tech people, is they mistake extroverted body language for confidence. And it often isn't the case. So some people will come to me and they'll say, Amy, can you teach me how to be polished? Teach me how to be scripted? Teach me to look perfect? And I won't do it, because I believe it's much more powerful to just be yourself. And this is great news for those who consider themselves introverted, and I'm quite introverted. I don't want to have to be extroverted for anybody. So truth doesn't need razzle-dazzle. You don't need to do a song and dance about it. You just take a breath. Commit to your purpose, commit to your intention, and speak from that place, and then you have power. So that's great news for introverts, because you don't need to turn yourself into an extrovert. And the reason I say this is because I work with a lot of VCs, and they come to me and they say, Amy, here's my founder, he's beta, and I need him to be alpha. And I'm like, no. Because what's really important to me is that you are yourself, and you back yourself, whoever you might be in that moment. So I'm not in the business of changing anybody, but I am in the business of giving you the power to be more of yourself. I hope I've made that clear. Okay, so again, I fucked my slides. This always happens. Oh, fuck, never mind. Right, so if you put breath, body, and voice all together, you get, along with connection and listening skills, you get genuine power. And I'm going to see if I can go back so I can at least do my slides properly. There we go. There we go. Right. Power. Now, when I talk about power, I don't mean power over other people. So I'm not in the business of controlling anybody else, making someone do it my way. You should be like this. You should definitely do it that way. Be more of this, be less of that. That's not the game I play. Also, I'm not in the business of allowing other people, including myself, to subjugate my needs to other people, to be servile. You're more important than me. No. The only power that matters is the power that you give to that part of yourself, the part that feels like an imposter. That's the only power that really matters, to enable yourself to breathe, stand tall, and I'm going to mention voice in a minute because I've just missed that out, but to use your voice powerfully, to give power to yourself, to learn authentic power, and to share that power freely with other people. So lift other people up. That's the only power that really matters, and it comes with learning to accept yourself, and that's a process. It takes time. And I did miss voice out, so I'm going to mention voice very quickly. The voice is very important. Content is key, obviously. You can't just speak a bunch of crap, but say it beautifully and expect that to be okay. No. Content matters, but how you say what you say is also very important. If you're genuine, and if you really mean what you say, even if you make a ton of mistakes, it doesn't matter, people will listen to you. If you're robotic, monotone, uncommitted to your message, don't really mean what you say, then no matter how perfect your script, no matter how wonderful your ideas, no one's going to buy it. So your voice does matter. Now, it's very difficult for me to condense 3 years of drama training and 20 years of stage experience, and by no means I would consider myself an expert. It's always a process of learning. But I'm going to attempt to do it in 5 minutes. The most important thing with voice, if you want to have a powerful voice, again, it comes back to breath. Breathe. So we're breathing deeply. The other thing that really matters is slowing ourselves down. So everybody's rushing around trying to say stuff. Everybody's trying to have the right answer at the right time. And what I teach people is it's okay to not have the right answer. It's okay to not know. It's okay to pause. And it's okay to breathe. And it's okay to wait. And it's okay to ask yourself, what does this mean to me? Why does this matter? And why should it matter to you? So if I'm pitching a business idea, the most important question is, why is my business proposition important? Why should anyone care? And I need to really connect to that feeling and resonate with that feeling before I open my mouth to speak. And once you connect to the why of your pitch, let's say, your voice has more power. It becomes less about repeating words on a script and more about meaning what you say. And honestly, it's the quickest hack to authenticity, slowing down, breathing, and speaking from a place of genuine care. So pay attention to how your words land with people. Care about how they land, because it'll be easier to listen to. In acting, we have this phrase, and it's called, let it matter. So it really needs to matter to you before you just spout words. The other thing I want to mention is, and I think I've touched upon it already, but I'm going to go into it a little bit deeper. There's a lot of bluff. So I work with founders, and they're often having to answer questions, and they panic, and so they go into bluff mode because they think they have to know all the answers. And a lot of words come out the mouth, but they don't really mean what they say, and they're kind of scrambling for an answer, so they're not really thinking about their answer. It's because we're anxious, we're in fight-flight. It really helps to breathe, and I can't emphasize it enough. Breathe, take your time, and we don't need to answer questions straight away. We can make the audience wait. Take a breath, gather your thoughts, and again, it's okay to admit that you don't know. It's a supremely confident move to be able to say to people, great question, I actually don't know the answer. Because that communicates confidence in self. So I'm often encouraging people to admit that they don't know because it shows integrity, it shows honesty, and other people are more likely to want to work with you because you're clearly not bluffing. And again, in terms of voice, you just sound like a person that really means what they say. And I think that that's key in business and in your personal life. Okay, I finally get to move away from this slide. Right. Have you experienced this in a meeting? By show of hands. Okay, great. So I call it death by meeting. It's this feeling of being in a meeting and it's really not going anywhere. Perhaps you've been that guy or that lady. I've certainly been her. But maybe you identify with him or maybe her. We've all had that sense of boredom, like, where is this meeting actually going? And then on the flip side, we've also, all of us at some point, been the person that's bored other people to tears. The words are just coming out, but nothing's really happening. So how do we avoid death by meeting? So picture the scenario. You're someone that's about to go into a boardroom meeting of senior people, and you've got a really crucial idea that you want to pitch. but you're really nervous and you're scared that your idea is going to bomb. The imposter syndrome is raging, your adrenal glands are pumping, and we're slightly terrified, but also excited. So what do? So the first thing you do before you walk into that room is don't go over your content. Breathe. Just breathe. Get in the body. Shoulders back, chest open. Remember that piece of string? We're standing tall. We're in the moment. We don't need to impress anybody. Don't need to try very hard. We just need to relax. Then we walk in, but you don't do this. So I had someone I worked with the other day, really great guy, had a really impressive fintech company, CEO, traveling the world, walks into the room like that. It's a bit sheepish. Shoulders back, chest open. Hi, I'm here. I'm confident, I'm brave, I'm poised, I'm open. The first thing you do once you've walked in and you've communicated strength is don't lay out your value proposition off the bat, because that will lead to that. Ask questions, open-ended questions. How and what questions? Get the other side talking. Get your counterpart speaking. Even if it's 5 people in the room, you can get them talking. Obviously, I can't do that with you guys because there's too many of you. But if it's a small audience, you can get them talking, get them engaged, and pay attention to what they say. Pay attention to what they don't say. Generate rapport. Lean in, be interested, curiosity. And only when you've won a little bit of rapport do you then have the permission and the right to pitch your business idea. And then, when you're pitching, it's not a dry delivery of data, which is what most pitches are. It's a story. And how do you tell a story? Well, you ask yourself, why does this matter to me? Why do I care? What problem am I solving? And why is that really important? And why should every single one of you know why that is important? Why do you need to know? And when you've connected to that feeling, you speak from that truth. Keep it simple. Less is always more. Don't say too many words. If you can say it in 10 words rather than 20 words, you want to veer to the less is more camp. And if you can say it in 1 word, that would be amazing. So we want to cut the linguistic fat from our pitches. And the other thing that's really important to mention is pausing. Pausing is so powerful. Some of the best negotiations happen in the silent moments. But many of us are too nervous to hold the silence, so we tend to want to fill it. But it's really important to be able to dare yourself to sit with the discomfort of the silence. Because actually, what that does is it allows the audience to hear what you're saying, to really take in your words, rather than what most people do, and including myself, when I'm nervous, we pack a whole load of words into one little sentence in the space of like 2 seconds, and we expect the audience to understand us, but that's just not going to happen. Silence and pause gives meaning to the words you actually say. So if you can take one thing away from today, it's breathing and stepping into silence and pausing and allowing there to be space in meetings so that we can genuinely connect a little bit more. Okay. All right. I'd like, at this point, because I've got a bit more time, is mention boundaries. So we can't be assertive unless we've got strong boundaries, but boundaries are very, very hard for the best of us. Really hard. Most of us, some of us actually, are people pleasers, and we struggle to assert boundaries. We very much want to value other people's needs over our own. You're right, I'm wrong. Therefore, I'm going to subjugate myself to you, and I'm not going to be very assertive. On the flip side, we've got the aggressive types, let's say, who, I'm right, you're wrong. My needs matter way more than yours, and their boundaries are inflexible. And what we want, if we genuinely want to be assertive, is to be somewhere down the middle, and that's really hard because it's an ongoing process, and it's a process of getting in touch with yourself. It's a process of getting to know yourself, getting to know what matters to you, what's right and wrong for you, and it's individual, everybody's different, and standing up for yourself. So in acting, we've got a phrase, and it's my favorite phrase, fuck polite. fuck polite. Now, I don't mean go around being a dick. Don't be rude to people for the sake of it. But honor your truth. Prioritize your truth over fitting in, following the line, towing the line, and not daring to rock the boat. It's really important in business and in life that we're able to breathe and connect with how we really think and feel about a situation and put our ideas out there, again, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Boundaries. Boundaries will save you. The word no is very dangerous for some people, particularly it was for me. I was never able to say no to people, always saying yes, always agreeing, always fitting in, not wanting to rock the boat. We're afraid of conflict. No is a fantastic word. It breaks through the nice person conditioning, and it helps you to stand up for yourself. So to say no to someone is quite scary because you might disappoint that person. They might get upset. They might disagree. They might want you to do something that you don't want to do. No is your friend, because none of us have been put on the planet to please everybody all of the time. It's just not possible. So no is your friend. So we need to develop the courage to say no a lot more. And this particularly applies to people like myself who are recovering people pleasers. So please say no more. Okay. Yes. Finally, my friend, Einstein. So, logic is very important. Obviously, we need to use our brains. We don't want to leave our brains out of the equation. Logic will get you from A to B, but imagination, I think, is your best friend, and it will take you everywhere. This idea of possibility is really important. And it leads to creativity if you dare to think big and if you dare to put your ideas out there. No matter how scary that might be, or no matter how silly you think your ideas are, we have to dare to put them out there. Now, anyone can look and sound like a leader. It's quite easy to pretend. But a genuine assertive person, someone who prioritizes their creativity, has the added bonus of actually feeling like a leader. They don't have to fake it. They're not afraid to put their ideas out there. Or they might be afraid, but they put them out there anyway. Put their ideas out there, regardless of what anyone thinks. And they're unafraid to make a mistake. They're unafraid to fall flat on their face in the service of their creativity. And you know what else being assertive does for you? It gives you power in the face of a bully. And I hate bullies. And it gives you power in the face of the biggest bully of them all, the inner critic, and we all have it. Every single person, it's part of the human condition. We all have an inner critic ourselves. And assertiveness will help you in the direction of supporting that small, sensitive part of yourself towards your creativity against what the inner critic might be saying to you. So, if you remember my little mute fairy at the beginning of this talk, that person I was when I was 15 and I was unable to speak up and stand up for myself, that person had a really significant role to play in my life. Every role that we play is important, from the lowest to the highest. It doesn't matter where you are in the supposed hierarchy. Every role is important, and it's up to you, each and every one of you, to play it well. And you have that power to play it brilliantly. So, life is horribly short. We only have a brief moment in time to really make the most of it. So I really think the less we care about other people's opinions, the better we're going to do. The faster we'll grow. Fail fast. Put your ideas out there. Dare to fuck up. I love that word, fuck up, fuck it, who cares, right? Have some backbone, take a risk every day, doesn't matter if you fail. The people who are worried about failing, they're gonna stay in the slow lane, but not you lot. And breathe. Breathing is important. Shoulders back, relax, stand tall, take a little risk every day, and don't be afraid to be a little bit crazy. And that will take you a long way. So this is my idea of assertiveness. I hope that's been helpful. If you want to receive information from me as a shameless plug, you can sign up to my website, and I like to write articles on this very subject. It's a subject that's very close to my heart, hopefully you can tell. And I'll write an article once a month, and I send it out to people, and it's better to send it to people than it to disappear into the ether. So if you're interested, do sign up. But dare every day to take a little risk and push that nice person conditioning slowly but surely out the way. Thank you.
Wow. I feel very personally seen.
Sorry?
I feel very seen. That was great.
I see you.
Okay, we've got a lot of questions. Let's get going. What is your advice when you need to deliver a message as a leader and you are not comfortable with it, so you cannot be fully yourself?
So I am never fully myself. Right now, I'm not fully, who am I? I'm in a process of learning that. I'm always nervous. You're never going to be fully comfortable. Never, 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 never. So the trick is to breathe into the discomfort. You lean into the discomfort, and you become, bit by bit, okay with it. And it's a process. Like I said, when I was 15 and I went on stage for the first time, I was trembling like crazy. And I was crying backstage. I was terrified. Now I've stopped crying backstage. I no longer cry, but I'm still nervous. Like my hands shake when I'm on the stage. It still happens for me, but I do it anyway. So in answer to the question, if you cannot be fully yourself, not comfortable, you have to accept that as a scenario. Whoever asked that question. And it applies to everybody. You have to breathe into the discomfort, breath, and go, fuck, I'm uncomfortable, never mind. Does that help?
Helps me.
Good.
During group discussions, if a person pauses or doesn't respond soon enough, others might start talking and hijack them. How do you handle that?
Whoa, stop.
I think that covers that.
I haven't finished speaking. Or wait a minute, I need a moment. Hang on a minute, guys. I haven't finished thinking.
I'm coming for you guys later. You keep quiet. I'm wondering, isn't acting more about not being yourself? Could you please share your perspective on that?
I love that question, and it's a good question. No, acting is about the best actors, and I'm not saying I'm the best actor, but I definitely was someone that valued truth. I come from the school of thought of acting where it's about broadening your palette of expression, playing all the notes that are inside you. We've all got access to so many notes, but we don't play them. And acting, singing, dancing, anything that's creative gives you permission to play slightly different notes. And it might, initially, it might feel inauthentic because you go, I'm not that sort of person. I'm the sort of person that speaks quietly. I never raise my voice. But you practice it, it feels inauthentic. You're acting as if you're a person that raises your voice, and suddenly, after a while, it becomes you. So it's about expanding your range of expression, and that's truthful. We're not meant to always be one way. Does that make sense? Do I get some nods? Yeah, okay, great.
I'm nodding. A nod for you guys. How do you handle a lack of response when you feel like you're talking into a vacuum?
Yeah. That's hard. It's difficult when an audience or if you're in a meeting, people don't respond. You simply, yeah, she's responding, it's good.
I'm very nervous. You're a hard act to join.
So don't be nervous, I'm nice, kinda. So it's very difficult to speak in a vacuum, you're absolutely right, especially when you feel like you're getting nothing back. It's very hard. But all you can ever really do is breathe and trust yourself and know that what you have to say is of value. And the other person's reaction is nothing to do with you. Sometimes when I'm in a talk, sometimes I might think, wow, this is a quiet audience. No one gives a shit. No one's listening to me. They're much more interested in looking at their phones, for example. And then I find out later, that's how they listen. They like to take notes. But I had assumed the wrong thing because I'm projecting my fear onto the audience. So don't assume that people aren't listening just because they're not responding. And maybe some people aren't listening and we have to actually ignore them, especially in something like this. In a one-to-one meeting, that's a little bit more tricky. I'm not sure if that's the question. If someone's not listening to you in a meeting, hello.
Just confront it right on. Isn't preparation a better technique than breathing?
Oh, yeah, of course. You've got to know your stuff. So I didn't mention it. Thank you for reminding me. You've got to know what you're talking about. You've got to prepare. You've got to go through your arguments. So say you're pitching a business, you've got to know your business model and all the fallibilities and the possible objections and questions you're going to get and have a rough answer for them. But you've also got to breathe. Because there's no point having great content but delivering it in a flaccid way, because then you don't look like a leader. And people are investing in you, if it's a business proposition, they're investing more in you than the business idea, because everybody knows that the business idea is ever evolving and ever changing. So it's really important that you do breathe and you do act strong. But content also matters. So prepare, prepare, prepare. Actors will rehearse for months before they go on stage. But before they go on stage, the first thing that they do is breathe. So it's the two.
It's a really great analogy for me.
Yeah.
I have heard that talent is 1% of success and 99% is about skills and practice. Do you agree? As a non-talented person in presenting, do I have a chance to become a great speaker?
Whoever said that, absolutely yes. Whoever you are, yes, of course, of course. So it is practice, constant rehearsal, working with other people who can see your blind spots and help you to step away from the self-sabotage and into the moment. Often it takes an outside person to be able to point that out to you. Everyone can do it. I never thought I could be an actor. No way. When I was 15, I couldn't even speak. I couldn't even put my hand up. I was so embarrassed. I'd go bright red and I would cry. And I was called the crying girl. And I was told that I had no talent, actually, many, many times. I was told I couldn't sing and I couldn't act. And I was told to just go home. And I did not let that stop me. So I'm not saying I'm the best talented person in the world, but I'm committed. So I think commitment and practice will take you far further than you ever imagined.
Wow, that's really inspiring.
Good.
If someone is dynamic and energetic, why should they slow down?
Yeah, why should they? No.
Where do
no,
they sit?
don't.
Isn't it part of their personality?
So, okay, let me clarify. What I mean by slowing down isn't necessarily slowing down the content and the words. It's just slowing down the manic energy on the inside. Because often that takes you away from presence and it stops you from really saying what you think and feel. But you can still speak quickly, but you've got to remain on purpose, on intent. And often when we're slightly panicked and we're in fight-flight, that's really what I'm talking about, then we go off message. And sometimes that dynamism and extroversion is a result of fight-flight, not a result of actually connecting to truth. You can go fast, you can go slow. It doesn't matter as long as you're connected to your truth, and that comes with breath. Is that clearer? Yeah.
For me it is. Actually, that speaks deeply to me. Do you have any advice for online meetings, which is really common nowadays?
Right, yeah. I find online meetings very hard. It's very difficult not to have the person in the room with me because I really like to connect with people and I really like to talk to people. My only advice is to stare at the screen and look like you're listening. But genuinely listen. Listening will be your friend. So whether you're online or in person, if you can pay attention to the other person, really put your attention on them, even though they're behind a screen, and listen to the words that they're saying. Pay attention to every word. Your response will sort itself out. You don't need to worry about your response because the other person will give you the information. All the data is in front of you, even if it's on a screen. And then you'll have a much more natural, attuned response to that person rather than worry about your response. And I can imagine, obviously, when people are on a screen, it can be quite, I don't know what to say. Relax, breathe, listen.
Okay. Can we practice the presence in a meeting alone?
So does that person mean that they're at a meeting but they're on their own?
I guess it would imagine that can you practice presence with an absence of people? Can you practice it on your own in your own room?
Right,
in a meeting room, an empty meeting room?
This is a great question. So as an actor and also as a business person, if you're practicing a pitch, we're always brilliant in the bedroom. We're fantastic, which is great, right? There's no self-consciousness. It's really important to be able to practice with someone in front of you because it brings the triggers up, right? And then you get to deal with those triggers. So actually, the best way to practice is doing this. So the reason I do lots of talks is because I teach this stuff and I feel very inauthentic teaching and not doing. So I put myself in the firing line. This is terrifying, right? And I practice with the nerves in the moment, because having people in the room with me whilst I'm pitching, presenting, or telling stories actually puts me in that triggered, slightly triggered state. And we learn presence through breathing through that triggered state. And you can't do that in the bedroom because you're already relaxed.
I might not be, but... An effective pause in the speech can raise attention. Should you plan it or do it on purpose? Will it still be effective? Either way.
That makes me think of a guy I worked with recently. I worked with a leadership team, and this one particular chap was very obsessed with pausing. And because he thought it was very effective and very powerful. And it is, but if used in the right way. He was doing it to have power over the other people. He wanted to make them feel uncomfortable. And I'm not in that game. I'm not sure if that's the question. Have I gone off tangent? Should you plan it? Right, yeah, planning it. So he was planning every pause, and it made him seem a little bit fake. I wouldn't say plan it so much. The better mindset would be allow it to happen. Give yourself permission to pause in the moment if it feels right. But it's all about following your feeling. If you get excited and you don't want to pause, keep going. That it's not prescriptive. So it's following your feeling, but it's giving yourself permission to pause. I don't think enough people give themselves permission to actually take the space. But don't use the pause to make other people feel uncomfortable, because that's just mean.
Yeah.
Right?
Unfortunately, that's all the time for questions we have, so we won't get to that last one. If you've got more questions for Amy, please find her during the breaks in the afternoon. And Amy, we'd like to give you...
Great,
and you
thank
can,
you.
You can find the Slido guys. They can give you the questions, I think.
Come grab me.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening.